This is a very special moment for the Gendlin Center because it has given its first grant for research. The Gendlin Center was created in honor of Eugene Gendlin, the founder of the Focusing Institute and the man who developed focusing as a practice. And when Gene did pass 2 years ago, we announced the formation of the Gendlin Center, and we got some various very generous donations from a number of people, which allowed us to offer a grant. And we have our first grant recipient. And I'll let Kevin say a little bit more.
Thanks, Catherine. So I'm Kevin Kriska. I chair the Gendlin Center Committee. When the board created the center, we really took some time, those of us, the members who are on it, took some time to think about what our first basically push would be. And we all agreed rather quickly that we needed to advance research in both philosophy and psychology. And everyone can guess that what constitutes research in those two fields are quite different. And while they can be collaborative, their outcomes have very different purposes. And so for psychology, an evidence-based outcome is sort of the I guess I'd call the gold standard, if you will. And you can argue about what evidence means and what constitutes evidence and all of that. But for most outside viewers, as Catherine was saying, they're asking about focusing. Well, does it work? And in what situations does it work? And when you ask those kinds of questions in a research setting, you have to be fairly rigorous. So we knew that we were going to be making a call for proposals for the grant, and that one of the criteria would be an original rigorous study that would contribute to the scientific or empirical, if you'd rather, research on Gendlin's psychology, his psychotherapy practice known as focusing. So that's where we were. We sent out a call in mid-June of 2018, and we took applications for the next several months, and then we reviewed them all in a fairly systematic way and had a lot of discussions, and we came up with our first grant awardee, and that is Siebrecht, who is here with us today. The winning title, if you will, the first grant is called Experiential Openness, Meaning in Life and Depression. And since Siebrecht's here, I don't need to tell you all what that's about. I'm going to let him do it. And I also, like Catherine and Siebrecht, want to congratulate you and your folks there on a great proposal. And we're looking forward to the work that you'll show us. I'll turn it over to you now.
Thank you. And first of all, I really want to say that I really feel grateful for receiving this award. It really feels like a blessing to me, because I'm a professor of clinical psychology. My name is Siebrecht Vanhooren, but I've been around focusing for a very long time as a student and later as a focusing-oriented therapist. And it feels really like an honor, this award. And so what is this research about? Like Kevin said, it's about meaning in life, it's about depression. And for me, doing research, I see it as part of the bigger picture of where we are in the world right now these days. I think we are facing huge challenges as people in the world. We have climate change, we have a lot of meaninglessness. There is an expectation of the World Health Organization that depression will peak around 2030 and will be really a lethal disease. And that's really scary. And I think focusing can play a role in helping people to cope with those existential challenges. And as a psychologist, I'm interested in the individual challenges, the challenges of people. And so it's too bad, but focusing is not that known in like academic milieus. So we want to introduce focusing as a very potential and like powerful resource for people to to find new ways to make sense of their lives. And we feel and we know already that existential challenges and existential concerns and meaning in life is kind of related to depression. And what we want to know, what we want to study is how focusing could mediate that relation between people's existential concerns and depression. We think that focusing can play a role. So we want to study that first in a rather big sample of people who are participants of an educational program. It's called a MOOC, a massive online program on existential well-being. These people have been introduced to existential well-being, to focusing as well. And we want to see what the effect is of that course and their focusing skills on how they cope with existential concerns and with depression. And later, we want to check how focusing can influence people in therapy, how people can cope or can better cope with those existential challenges and depression. And we hope to continue this research for many years. I think this award really gives us our research a push, a financial push, but also a mental push. It helps us to believe in our project and to continue and to put it forward, something like that.
Thank you. Yeah, one of the many parts of your project that I think caught our attention was, first of all, the sample size. And for those who again, aren't terribly familiar with research, sample size in empirical evidence-based practice research is important.
Yes.
And most of us being psychotherapists don't have access to a big number of people. And that's, so we might do a survey, but it's a small one and it's limited in scope for generalization. And so when you have a big sample like you're going to gather, is that you can generalize more realistically, and you can fall in the kind of realm of validity now. And this is something that has not been really done in focusing circles. It has, but it hasn't been done enough. And,
yes.
And that's sort of what attracted, I think, the committee to really supporting this proposal.
Yeah, we are very fortunate. We created, it was in fact Mia Leysen who created this educational program on online, an online course. And it was like beyond our expectations. It became really successful. We have 10,000s of students a year. So these people are really grateful for this course. Mm. We get a lot of positive feedback also from the edX platform where it happens, where this educational program takes place. And our idea is to draw from that sample, from those participants, and make it maybe also part of the course. So we are sure that we will have a huge sample. And exactly as therapists, it's very hard to collect a big sample or to have a big sample of people. So we really believe that this can also give a push to like focusing, because it could get into the picture. I think studies about depression, studies about meaning in life are big these days. Also positive psychology is big, but focusing has been a little bit on the edges because it has not been studied in large samples. So I think there is a big opportunity for our focusing and for experiential psychotherapy in general.
Maybe the listeners or viewers would be interested in how big a sample. I mean, when we read your proposal, this is not, okay, just say, how many do you think that you're going to...
I think we can get like 20,000 people or something. Yeah. And that's very big. Yeah.
That's very big by anybody's standards.
Yes.
I it's amazing to me that the success of the MOOC is already so well done. it's so well proven, so that this additional component, if you will, maybe that's not the right way to say it, but it really has a strong chance of good turnout too. Yeah.
Exactly. I don't have a lot of doubt about it.
Yeah.
I'm usually a skeptic person, but you know, this MOOC has been successful now for 3-4 years, and we still attract the same amount of people.
Yeah.
People are just happy with the course.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah, from you mentioned 180 different countries are represented in this 20,000.
Exactly.
Annually. That is, again, wow, it's amazing. Good work.
It will be a big international study.
Yeah,
that's true. And it seems like big, but on the other hand, it's also doable, because I think being part of KU Leuven, of our university, we also have like the support, the technical support of other departments who can help us to set us up this project and this research.
Yeah,
yeah,
that's a good point. So one of the other things I think maybe the person viewing this clip might be interested in is any of the scales that you might be using as part of the quantitative part of this study. It's an involved study, and we'll have the proposal up on the website also at some point. Give you a chance to edit it, of course, first, but we would, like to have as clear and concise for the viewing public to kind of look at. But I wonder if you could say a little bit about that part. Like you're comparing all these things in the notion, or you're testing, if you will, the hypothesis that focusing as an intervention, that's how we might put it in our lingo, will have a positive effect, meaning a reduction in depressive symptoms, something along those lines. So I wonder if you could just say a little bit about how you plan to measure that change.
Well, for the focusing, we have the focusing manner scale. It's originally, I think it was a Japanese scale by our Japanese colleagues. It has been translated in English, so we will use the English one. And there has already been a lot of research with that scale, so I think we can trust that scale that it measures experiential openness. So that's one thing. For the meaning in life, we are still deliberating, we're still thinking a little bit. Probably the meaning in life questionnaire is a possibility of Steger, but there is a colleague, Clara Hill, who developed recently a new meaning in life measurement, the meaning in life measurement, exactly that's the name of the scale. And which is really interesting, because that scale also looks at reflection. And a lot of meaning scales don't look at reflection as a source of meaning. For depression, we have to be careful that we pick a scale that doesn't refer to elements of meaning in life, because for technical reasons, we could, it's a little bit technical, but we could like measure the absence. So we have to make sure that we measure depression like very, very, I would use the word sec, very dry, like a dry measurement for depression. So it doesn't interfere with other stuff. And for existential concerns, there is a new scale, that's the Existential Concern Questionnaire. And that measures existential anxiety. So these are like the main skills we will use. We might add a couple more. What will be very important in this study is that we think really, we already did a lot of thinking, but we have a good measurement for demographical stuff, because we have people from 180 countries. So it will be important to also look at the background of people, and also their investment in focusing, of course, and their investment in that course. because we will probably also see differences between, or we hope to see difference between involvement in the course, like people really like work around focusing, do they practice focusing? So all that kind of information is of course very, very important. And all those things are related, and with statistics we'll hope to see connections, and so to find out how focusing exactly influences depression, or the potential to influence depression, and meaning in life, of course. It can influence meaning in life. And as a therapist and as a focuser, I know that focusing can help to find direction in life, right? And to make sense of things. It's really helpful, almost a helpful way of being. We hope we can make that obvious to the world through our research.
Yeah. I couldn't agree with you more about the kind of the context for this. It's as focusers, I think we take for granted that sort of interconnection between meaning and
Yes.
positive development in our life. In psychology, we're always referring to symptoms and symptom reduction and things like that. It's a negative view. But what we find as focusers, I think so much, and what you just pointed to, is the positive growth aspect, which are difficult to measure in a clinical field, which starts from the negative almost always. And so we're kind of disproving a negative, if you will. It's an interesting complexity, which philosophers have a better handle than I do. But your proposal and your grant award, it really is trying to get at that and unpack it in a very systematic way. And I think that's going to be one of its strengths. So.
Yeah, that's what we hope for, to show that focusing and experiential openness has an influence on our broader sense of meaning in life. And there has already been some research that shows that meaning in life has an influence on depression, and that therapy can help people to experience more meaning in life. But we want to make that step before clear, that earlier step, that focusing actually can help people to experience meaning in life, and in that way influence depression. Maybe there is also a direct relationship between focusing and depression. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, with an N of 20,000 or even 10,000, something will pop up. There's no doubt you'll have some sort of findings worth note. I wonder if maybe we could just sort of end by giving us a little bit of a timeline, so the viewer might have a sense of what's happening now and what will happen soon.
What's happening now? In fact, this week we send our proposal to the ethical committee. We have to give its blessing, but our file is in pretty good shape, so I don't expect a lot of problems with that. And if there are problems, we will solve it. And the next step is already like to create the questionnaire. Of course, we have all the skills, but we have to put it together. And the next step will be to actually do the research. So we are very close, in fact, to make it work, or to put it into the world. I think it won't take that long. The analysis will probably take a little bit longer because we want to take our time for it. And there will be several people working on it. It's not just me, there are several people or different students. So we hope we can start our research already, maybe in October. So now we are kind of the end of April. So when we get the ethical clearance, we can start to develop the online questionnaire, and then actually start in September, October would be great. Then we will let the research run for a couple of months in order to increase our sample. And I think probably after 4 or 5 months, we'll stop the research and start analyzing. And that will take probably half a year. And then we'll start to write our results and to publish, hopefully. Not hopefully, this will happen. I'm pretty sure about that.
Yeah. Excellent.
Mm-hmm.
Well, really, again, congratulations. And all of us are looking forward to watching how this goes. I think it would be good for us to, have periodic updates. We can let the folks know how it's going and, talk, in a sense, have another little chat, a catch up. I think that would be important, particularly people who are really interested in evidence-based stuff like you're doing. So
yes, that would be very nice also for us to communicate what we are finding, like early results or something like that. Because
exciting.
Because these days it's also very important to be very how should I put it, transparent about research.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, it's important to be transparent towards the focusing community about also what we do with the money and everything. So
that part of it, and people may get inspired. Probably they will get inspired by what you're doing, and then they'll be, spin off. Oh, I could do that here or something like that. It's all good. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think the MOOC study, so that first big study is interesting, but we hope to do much more, which will be more psychotherapy research then. But that's a different story.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. Catherine, did you want to?
Yeah, sure. I'll take us out. I've really, really enjoyed listening to you two academics talk about the research, and I feel really excited, and I think people are going to really appreciate the work that you're doing, Siebrecht. And I said at the beginning of our conversation that this is a very special moment for the Gendlin Center and for the Institute. It really is such. Again, we created the Gendlin Center to honor Gene and to carry his work forward. And this is a very concrete way that we are honoring him in just the way he would want to be honored, which is somebody take all of the wonderful legacy he's left us and go out into the world. And the way that you are doing it with the MOOC to tens of thousands of people and addressing this question of meaning in life. It's so profoundly important. I think Gene would be really, really, really delighted with everything that you are doing and this whole conversation. So congratulations and thank you. And thank you to Kevin.